All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 7 of BHD Sports Podcast. This evening, we have, if you're a Habs fan, you know this guy is a Scotian Canadian, but I know this guy is my good friend from grade primary of elementary school, Matt Bedard. Matt, buddy, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing lovely, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Great having you on the show.
Of course,
Right on.
Adam's
Thanks
doing
for having me,
fantastic. He's a
guys.
Bruins fan, not a Habs fan.
Oh,
Oh yeah, I'm
go.
starting right away.
Shot early.
I got them teed off.
Tee it off right off the bat. You couldn't let him just ease into the episode, eh? Had to have that first.
Of course not.
Oh man, you're gonna get it tonight, buddy. So Matt, man, it's so good to have you on as a fellow Habs fan. You know, I'm really looking forward to tonight's episode. But the first question, I'm curious to know, when did you fall in love with the Habs and become such a huge fan of the team?
So I think I really fell in love with them probably, I think it was the 2002 Cup run when we, as the 8th seed, knocked out the Boston Bruins in 7 games.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Those 8 to work.
You have to go all the way back to 2002 for the vault. All right, continue.
I think there was another one in 2014, but that's outside the case. But no, I think initially, when I first really, discovered Montreal was through my grandfather. He had Parkinson's disease, and he was living in the Veterans Memorial in Halifax. And behind his bed in his room, he had a picture of NHL goaltenders, and I think it was the original 6 goaltenders at the time, and Jocelyn Thibault was on the poster, and it was that he was the Montreal goalie. And I remember him pointing out to me that, this is my favorite hockey team. And, he was very passionate about the Montreal Canadiens. So from that point on, I was like, I love this team. I love my grandfather. I'm going to follow this team my whole life. And then when I really got in my teen years is when I really started to actually watch the games and actually look at stats and look at news articles and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's where it comes from.
That's so cool, man, that you did that at such a young age, and you just, wanted to be like your grandpops, and you wanted to like the team he did, and now look at you. You were the ultimate Habs fan. And I know 2002 was a special year. That was also the year, I remember that was also the same year that I became a Habs fan. It was the night that Saku Koivu made his return back after his battle with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that was just, I remember that night I was in tears. It was so emotional. It just showed the power of sport and people coming back from crazy adversities, and that was when I fell in love with the team too. So it's cool that we can kind of relate to that and have that.
Yeah, that was a very big year for hockey because, like you said, there was the Koivu stuff, then the Montreal-Boston series. And then we, that same year, I think it was the Olympics, the 2002 Olympics. And it was the first time the NHLers went back to the Olympics, and then they went and won gold. So I think that was a big year for hockey for our generation.
That was the first time that Canada won gold since NHLers were back. It was 98 when they were allowed back in the Olympics. So that was when Gretzky and was on that team, and they gave the C to Eric Lindros instead.
And they didn't use Gretzky in the shootout, if I'm not mistaken. Did they not?
Yeah, that was just we didn't even get a medal that Olympics, which was just shameful considering we had the best players. But I mean, Dominic Hasek stole that tournament.
He did. He was the dominator.
Not that I watched it. I might have been either just born or I don't know, still in my mother's stomach at that point. But
I cried after that loss big time. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
To not get to see Gretzky win one was tough.
Yeah, but you mentioned Saku Koivu, and he's a player that doesn't matter what team you support. I think everybody respects him as a player in the league, what he went through off the ice, and you hear some of the other players and other podcasts and stuff talk about how classy of a guy him and his brother are. Zaku, he got a lot of shit just because the Habs didn't win a cup during his captaincy tenure, but wasn't on him by any means. He was a hell of a player for them.
For sure.
I agree.
Yeah. Just like how too many Leafs fans give shit to Matt Sundin, really. Like, I mean, he was a hell of a hockey player too. He just, I mean, you gotta have the horses around you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at this year's Leafs, right? Like they have the star power, but you got to have depth to make it far and make deep runs. And you know, the Habs have been lucky to do that in a couple years throughout our lifetime, which is good. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long for another one. Hey, Matt.
Yeah, hopefully not too long. I mean, the turnaround's looking good. I think, maybe not next year. Well, I think that next year is a bit of a wild card.
Yeah.
But
well,
they
have to go
turn
get your
this around.
brother, Connor Bedard, right? Connor Bedard's your brother over in the Western Hockey League, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Same skill set, right, Matt? Same skill set.
Yeah. Could you imagine though? Like I have my, reasons for wanting him, but he is the next he's the generational star of this, decade. There was McDavid. He's the next one. And we haven't even seen what McDavid's capable yet in terms of long playoff runs, but Connor, I mean, the kid is special. He's a special player, and we're going to get to see him play this summer in the World Juniors. Thank God, because
yeah, that's going to be a hell of a tournament. I mean, it's going to be weird having the World Juniors in the summer. Like, I mean, that's always like a Boxing Day. You're full from like turkey dinner. Like, you usually don't have as much work. You can like booze a little bit more over Christmas time while watching the World Juniors. Like, I'm watching a bunch of 16 to 20-year-olds play hockey, and that's what my whole life revolves around over Christmas time, and I'm completely okay with that.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to have in the summer, that's for sure.
Okay, I tell you, but I think you said it on one of your post game react. I don't know if it was a post game reaction, Matt, or even a video you posted on your YouTube channel. Shane Wright's the next one for the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, we got a shot at him, right? I mean, I'm very happy to have an opportunity to draft possibly top 3 this year. It doesn't happen too often. Habs had that opportunity a couple of years ago and screwed the pooch with Kotkaniemi. He's now playing for somebody else. So they can't waste
real
this
home runs with
opportunity.
Galchenyuk and Kotkaniemi there. Real home runs.
And to think we could have like a player like Tkachuk. Oh, it's just like it hurts.
I know.
Tkachuk would be the perfect player on the Habs. Like, imagine Tkachuk, Gallagher, and Anderson on a line. Like that'd be absolute like hell makers out there. But like, I mean, there's a lot of players in the Habs that I would like to see as Bruins personally. By the way, Adam, I'm ashamed of you right now. I see that Montreal jersey in the background. Like I want to slap you all the way from California right here for that one.
Go Habs, go.
Yeah, I feel like I'm outnumbered 3-1 here.
Matt, I am interested to hear your thoughts on Shane Wright though. Like, what do you think that would mean to a team like Montreal to get a player of that caliber?
Oh, it would be huge. I mean, because, Kotkaniemi left and we replaced him essentially with Dvorak. And I'm not sure, Dvorak is the best option for your 2C. I mean, if you want to be a championship team, you need 2 number 1 centers. Can't just have one. Yeah. So, and I don't think Dvorak's a number 1 center. Nick Suzuki's definitely a number 1 center. So if we could get a Shane Wright or a Connor Bedard or whoever, Saflovsky or whatever the other fella is that's available in the top 3 this year, they'll set themselves up for future, because Montreal's prospect pool is stacked on defense. Caden Gooley, Logan Mailloux, Jordan Harris just joined in. They just got Justin Barron from Halifax. Massive.
He's a guy. Yeah. Like, what do you think of Justin Barron? Like, man, like I caught clips of like his first game. Guy plays 20 minutes, gets his first point. Like, I'm surprised Colorado. Like, I think Montreal absolutely fleeced. Like, Lehkonen was a good player. Don't get me wrong. But to get a second-round pick, as well as Barron, who was a first-round pick, who's already proven himself to be, like, he almost made Colorado in one of the and they're probably the deepest defensive lineup in the NHL right now. And like the Habs like stole him from Colorado. I thought, like, what's your thoughts on him?
Oh, I'm very excited. He was a blast to watch in Halifax and with Team Canada. I mean, something I really like with players when you're trying to project what they're going to do in the NHL is the hockey IQ aspect, because you'll see guys in the Q or in the O or in the WHL dominate sometimes due to their speed. You know, they can break past guys out on the outside, right? But Barron does it with his hockey IQ. He can play on both sides of the puck. And I think that's really is what's going to take him far. And to have a guy who's 6'2", 200 and can move the way he does and make the reads the way he does, he looks comfortable so far in the NHL at 20 years old, but he's got a lot of potential. And Montreal was very weak on the right side for defense. You know, all their chips were in on Logan Mailloux, and we don't really know how that situation is going to play out yet, despite him having a lot of potential.
I think that was like that was an awful pick. Like, I mean, like it was a late first round pick, and like I know he had that like upside potential on the ice, but just I just think between all the off ice stuff, I don't think is just it was too risky of a pick at that point in time for Montreal. Yeah. Like, I mean, they could have got him in the second and third round if he was a guy they actually wanted. But like, I think that decision was something that ultimately cost. I mean, that and many others cost Marc Bergevin his job.
Yeah, it very well could have. I mean, Marc Bergevin had this philosophy that his sole focus was to improve the hockey club. He just ignored all the rest of it. But with a decision like that, you just can't ignore all of the rest of it, especially when you're the Montreal Canadiens. You're under that limelight. He literally just focused on the hockey aspect and went, you know what? I can get a top 15 talent late in the first. Let's do it.
And I think, you put that perfectly, Matt, because like, obviously it's a game that we all it's a sport that we're so passionate about. But at the end of the day, it's more than just hockey. You're representing a culture, you're representing a city, and it was definitely tough to see them make that decision. And I'm not saying I agree with it or disagree with it. We don't really know what's going to happen yet. Hopefully Logan, improves himself and becomes a better person from everything. But yeah, that was definitely a tough one to try to justify for sure.
But to get drafted in probably what's the harshest media market. Like how did they think that pick was not going to get any sort of backlash to the media? Like in that kind of media market, like I just think like even just like every single camp that this player, it's just going to be a distraction for the team for the next 5-6 years. Like, I mean, we've seen some star athletes do some questionable things. Like, I think the first thing comes to mind is Ray Lewis, and I mean, his white tuxedo magically disappeared from the night at that after Super Bowl party. And then like 10 years later, like he's like face of the league, like fan favorite, like when the Ravens won their Super Bowl, like that was just kind of all forgotten about. So, I mean, people never really truly forget, but I just think it's he's not a generational type of player. Like why add that kind of burden and distraction to your team?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, like the guy literally could hit a ceiling and not be an NHLer, and then you brought all that controversy onto yourself for nothing.
Yeah.
But at the other side of the coin, what if he becomes a top 4? Who knows? Maybe a top 2. And then he's scoring goals and he's making plays on the power play. And then and then the Ray Lewis thing, like you just mentioned.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems with athletes, like, I mean, everybody's celebrating Ben Roethlisberger right now. I think everybody's forgotten about the very questionable and shady and shitty things he's done. But, I mean, it's a part of pro sports. I mean, like there is a forgiveness aspect to it. Like people can move on and change, but then there's also some things it's just like, all right, how much do people really do change?
Yeah,
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, the kid's 18. The guy's 18 years old. Like he's so young at that point. So I really hope that he can prove as a person that he was worthy of that first round selection, because it makes it easier for the franchise as a whole. Like I mean, if he, like you said, if he proves to be a top 2, top 4 kind of guy, like his teammates respect him and all that, then, it shows a lot about Montreal's developmental system, about how they're able not just to develop good hockey players, but develop people. And that's, at the end of the day, that's more important than the sport itself.
100%. Yeah.
Agreed.
But you know what really pissed me off, and I'm not a Habs fan, but I do respect them.
Really? You got the jersey in the back of your room there, Danny. For God's sakes, you're killing me, buddy. Come on, you got to move the mic so I can see that Bruins flag.
Yeah. Anyway, to my point.
Sorry, I'm just a big distraction today.
I'll explain later, Henry. Montreal last year at the trade point, they had a chance to get Taylor Hall. All I seen over Twitter was Taylor Hall to Montreal, Taylor Hall to Montreal, and that didn't. And they go out and get Christian Dvorak.
Hey, the Bruins are reaping the benefits now. Hey.
Oh yeah,
He should be suspended right now, but that's another story.
You think he should be suspended for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you why, and I'll tell you why. Because the NHL has a very horrible. I don't know. It's a common trend with them that they take injuries into account way too heavily, and I get that is an aspect of it. If you injure a guy, there should be more consequence to your action, but I think there should be more onus on the potential for injury, because what Taylor Hall did,
I do agree with that. I do agree. Like I think the intent to injure factor is something that needs to be taken into account a lot more.
Yeah.
Even
if the guy doesn't get injured, there was potential for it there. He got hit. He got clocked in the face from behind, and luckily Lyubushkin is okay, I guess. But if he hits his head on the ice and ends up with a concussion, is there then a suspension?
Yeah, he probably ends up getting 5 to 10 games for that.
So and if you're only, I think you'd have less of those instances if you'd suspend when there's significant potential for injury.
Yeah. And the only reason why I think he shouldn't get suspended for that was because I don't know if you've seen the clip of Pacioretty doing something very similar to Chris Letang. That's been kind of circulating around the media circles. It's almost an identical play that didn't even get a penalty, fine, or suspension. And the Department of Safety, they set precedent when they do that.
Right.
Like any time when there's something that's they think, oh, it could be suspended or not. If there's a similar play after that, then it sets it's a precedent for future suspensions. Like when I think the first thing that comes to mind when I think of kind of something where a star player got was when Chris Simon went and curb stomped, one left, two stomp on Buddy's leg there and got 30 games. And then, doing the cha-cha slide there, right on his the back of his shin. And then Chris Pronger does it and doesn't even get a suspension off the start, doing it to Ryan Kessler's leg. And then, new angle the video, he ends up getting 7 or 8. But then Chris Simon, I know he had a known history and stuff like that, but Pronger at the time was the most suspended player in NHL history, which Brad Marchand, I think, has taken the reins of that.
Imagine that, a Bruin having that, eh? Imagine that, guys.
Oh, I know. What a surprise. The Bruins are the cleanest hockey team around. Other than that goon, Patrice Bergeron, Marchand, super clean player, has never done anything dirty in his life.
But look at I think it was 5 years ago when the Zdeno Chara almost kills Max Pacioretty. He gets nothing, no suspension. I think he got a $500,000 fine.
The Montreal police tried to put a warrant out for his arrest, though.
But do you guys realize what $500,000 is to Zdeno Chara?
It wasn't 500,000. It was 5,000. You remove a couple numbers there, it was $5,000.
That makes your point even stronger.
But exactly. That goes back to
as Jordan Belfort says, those are fun coupons.
But
But was the intent there, though, as much as some of those other ones, right? Was the intent? I mean, Chara's, I didn't like that hit, and Pacioretty got hurt really bad, but that was, I mean, they were both battling for the puck, and I didn't think that one was as dirty as some of the other ones. Some of the other big, like stomping on a guy, I find is a whole lot worse than, you know, battling and having a bad. I'm not saying that the hit with Chara was clean. You know, I'm a Habs fan. I love Pacioretty. I have a Pacioretty jersey. But at the same time, that's a bang play. I don't think the intent was there.
Yeah, like I really don't think, like, I mean, whenever I played hockey, I never thought of a stanchion as something as like, oh, I'm going to hit buddy into the stanchion.
Yeah,
like even when you see hits over the boards, like nobody really runs a guy thinking, oh, I want to run this guy right through the boards. Like unless you're like a malicious kind of player like that, which like I don't think Chara was. Like Chara's not the Scott Stevens type who goes and tries an open ice, blows up guys. Like he plays hard, he finishes his checks, but he's like, I mean, you look at some of those Scott Stevens hits, like man, he's out for blood there. And I mean that was hockey back then in 80s, 90s, early 2000s. But
what are your thoughts on that, Matt? Like, what did you think about the Chara hit? I know it was terrible, and you never want to see any.
Yeah, nobody wants to see anybody hurt.
But what are your thoughts on the Chara one? What's your opinion on that one?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm conflicted on that one. It's so long ago, right? I think there was that rivalry was fucking intense back then.
Oh yeah,
like that was a very heated.
Was that the same year that the big brawl happened with Thomas and Pricey actually dropping the mitts? Was that the same year?
Was a sick game.
I think it was.
That was like an 8-5 game or something.
That was an intense
that was incredible.
Game. That was heated.
There was a game, I think a couple weeks or something before the whole stanchion incident where Pacioretty scored the OT winner, and then as soon as he scored it, he shoved Chara from behind out of the way. And then they went and played a couple weeks later, a couple days later, whatever, and then the stanchion thing happened, and it happened to be Pacioretty on Chara. So there was a lot of people that said, oh, was that retribution for that shove after they won the game, you know, previously? And Pacioretty scored and shoved Chara. So there's that aspect to it. I don't know. No one will ever know if it was intentional or not. But I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Chara. He's a top of the line elite defenseman, and he aged like a fine wine. And I wonder, like, I like hearing Brett's perspective of it too. As a player, it makes sense that you're not really thinking about that. You know, because you're just playing whistle to whistle. You're playing board to board. You're just trying to win the puck battle. And that's kind of what it was, right? And Chris mentioned it too. It was a bang, bang play. You'd have to, I don't know. I go back and forth on it. But, you know, I do think
I think you have to be a certain type of malicious player to be like, I'm going to hit him into the stanchion, like to try and hurt him. Like that's like that. It's like the same level as like, oh, I'm going to baseball swing someone in the head with their stick. Like it's a different. It's not like you can like it almost seems like it was a hockey play gone wrong, where it's instead of something that's just like, okay, I meant to shove him into, like we could debate that all day long, like about whether he meant to hurt him or not. Like, I mean, Chara's the biggest guy in the league, and people are going to get hurt just like he's big, bad, mean. Like, I mean, he's one of the reasons why he's one of the elite defensemen of that time. Like, not to mention he can put a 108-mile-per-hour collap bomb at you too. I mean, I think that's the most terrifying thing he can do on the ice. But yeah, I just can't see it as a player thinking in their mind being like, yeah, the stanchion, that's where I'm going to try and hit him towards.
So, Matt, that kind of leads to our next question is, you know, obviously there's been so much heated rivalries with Montreal. They're kind of a team that no one likes, and it's either hate them, you're either a huge fan, or you hate them, kind of a thing. Well, who in your opinion is Montreal's biggest rival, and why would you choose the team that you pick?
By far, it's the Boston Bruins. I mean, the history that the two franchises have, battling back and forth in playoff hockey, when that's when it means the most. And I feel like the Canadiens and the Leafs those are the options for Montreal, right? And
For sure.
they could have had a heated rivalry like that. The Leafs just don't often find themselves in the playoffs, past 1967. So, but the Bruins have. And as much as I hate the Bruins, I respect them, you know? So I definitely think it's the Bruins. And the thing is, we've traded wins, we've traded losses. Both teams have had an incredible amount of success and have beat each other on their paths to success. And it's always incredible hockey. And I just love what both franchises bring to the table. And it's just a shame that for the last, 5 to 10 years or so, we haven't had that series, but it'll be nice to eventually meet the Bruins in the playoffs again here, hopefully soon, because, with the Leafs, I don't know, man. They're just,
I can't wait to hear this. Keep going, Matter.
Yeah, let it out. Let
Just
it
say
out.
it.
Oh,
Just
buddy,
say
keep
it,
going.
baby.
so they're not nearly as good as people think. They're a regular season powerhouse
Yes.
that rely
Let it
on
out.
they're a regular season powerhouse that rely on their top talent and elite level goaltending to dominate the regular season, when the veterans are going through the motions and just trying to get through the grind. You know what I mean? But once playoff hockey kicks in, you need all 4 lines. You need every single D pair. And of course, you still need that goaltending. And you also need your elite talent to dig deep and maybe play a different role. Maybe, send a message here or there. And the top talent on the Leafs aren't willing to do that in most cases. So not only do they usually not have the depth, but they have a guy like Austin Matthews, who's 6'3", 220, 230, whatever he is. And he's the softest guy on the team. So it's like, dude, and as much as,
playoff hockey. Doesn't win you.
yeah, and I remember when the whole Ben Sherratt thing happened, and I think it was game 1 or 2 in that series, and Austin Matthews is literally smiling as he's being assaulted behind the net. That was his opportunity to show his team that we are ready to play. And
What happened?
That we can.
yeah, so where did I cut out?
Talking about Austin Matthews and
Yeah. So Matthews, he's 6'3",
Soft as ice
220,
cream.
whatever he is. Yeah, and he's the softest guy on the team. And I'm very glad that the Montreal Canadiens series with them last season turned around in the way it did, and Montreal won. And I really think it was because of the Habs' willingness, despite not having the talent that the Leafs have, their willingness to dig deep and really, play that grinded out style of hockey. If Austin Matthews turned around and punched Ben Sherratt in the face, I think he would have rallied his entire team behind him, and they probably would have ended up winning that series in 5. But he chose to, just allow himself to get, embarrassed. And then you see this season when he finally stuck up for himself, albeit it was super greasy when he cross-checked. Who was it?
2 games sussy. Darlene. Yeah, and the Heritage
Darlene,
Classic.
right. And as greasy as it was, finally there was some pushback from Austin Matthews. And you saw quotes from his team going, I really like seeing Austin stick up for himself. So anyway, they've not been a cup contender as advertised the last few years, not even close. And I don't know. I'm not bought into what they're building. And I can buy into what the Bruins are building, despite, they've got some aging veterans. They bring in Lindholm and immediately lock him up. And now their D-core has some veteran consistency for the next decade. I like that.
With Lindholm and McAvoy as your 1-2D for the next 7-8 years, it makes you, and with Swayman and Nets, and then you still got to lock up Pasternak, because he's going to want to get paid. But then you have Hall for 6x6. Oh yeah, and
with the cap hits that some of those star players on the Bruins, it allows you to have takes a team. It's not, you can't win with one line or two. You, like Matt said earlier, in playoffs you need all 20 guys going at the right time, right? So it's tough when you're paying over $10 million for 3 different guys, and
And
Yeah.
I don't know how the Bruins do it
First
too,
round,
but the
right?
Bruins somehow are able to get these guys on a lot of team-friendly deals. Like, I don't know how they were able to convince, like, Pasternak, Bergeron, Marchand. Like, McAvoy's getting paid his $9.5 million in his next contract, but McAvoy took a $4.5 million deal, I think it was, on a bridge deal, where you're seeing a lot of these young studs who are looking to get paid right away. Like Jack Hughes, before he's even put up 100 points, is getting an 8x8 deal. And you're seeing these young stars who are like, I think it's also put a lot of pressure on a lot of these young players too, because they're expected to produce so early in their careers. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, you look at, I think like Joe Thornton is probably the biggest example of a guy who had a really slow start to his career. Like, I think he only might have had like 16 or 20 points in his first year. And then, like, it was 5-6 years later when he finally started becoming the superstar that he was. Like, these players, especially these early picks, are expected to be superstars right away. And I mean, like, we can talk about some of those Leaf contracts. The Marner, Tavares was being paid for because he was free agent, UFA dollars, the little bit of incentive there. But I mean, like, Marner, like, you can't say Matthews is not worth that $10.5 million contract because he's been top 3 player in hockey. But I mean, like, I think Marner should have been on a bridge deal for 2-3 years, making 6 or 7, being like, all right, like prove it, prove that your money's worth it. Cause like money really is an incentive for these players. Like,
For sure. But at the same time, on the other hand, I think there's only one player that has made more than 10 million that has made the cup final, and he was a goalie, Carey Price. So
And that was the one they said wouldn't work, right?
yeah.
So I mean,
Well,
I get what you're saying, that the players are worth that amount, but at the same time, what are you paying all that money for if there's only been one player
That's a very good point. Yeah. I
took his
mean,
team to the cup final, right? It's
My
tough to
thing
build
with
a team.
Yeah, it is. My thing with the Leafs is that they sign these guys to huge contracts at the wrong time. And I think there's a perspective that, I mean, you guys may agree or disagree with me here, but I think there's a perspective or an opinion that's kind of run rampant with hockey fans that the prime or the peak of an NHL player is that, 22, 23, 24-year-old seasons, you know what I mean? And I personally disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think, and I think you see it every playoffs. The teams that have a core of guys 26 to 32 or so, those are the teams that go far. And I think the Leafs, I really think they made a huge mistake signing John Tavares to an $11 million long-term contract, literally like a year before they had to negotiate with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. It literally set them up for failure, and having to sign those guys as well to contracts that matched Tavares, because your internal cap structure matters. And say what you will about Marc Bergevin, I have a lot of respect for what the Boston Bruins do, and Brett brought it up about the guys taking team-friendly deals. Marc Bergevin was trying to do that with Montreal, and he ended up making some enemies that way, but that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to get guys to realize that you're not going to, it's likely you're not going to go on cup runs when you're 22. We want to pay you that big contract when you are truly in your athletic prime, which will be in your late 20s and early 30s kind of thing. And I think the Leafs really missed the boat, because 2 years from now, there's a chance Austin Matthews goes to free agency and goes to Arizona, when really they could have had him on a better contract and then had the potential to maybe, probably have a better team right now if they had him on a better contract.
There was a reason why Austin
Matthews
Matthews signed for 5 years and not the 8. Because he's a guy that you want to have locked up for 8 years.
Absolutely.
Whenever a team is looking to lock you up, if he's trying to reduce the number of years on his contract, that's because in however many years it is now, like, he's going to have all the power in the world as a UFA.
Yeah.
And
And
that
Essentially, Toronto developed him, and he'll be in his athletic prime for Arizona. Really.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that 5,000 seat arena at Arizona State, man, I think they should just. I could just, that's just awful. Like how it's a professional sports team playing in an arena
this,
that seats as many as the Forum.
I got a point.
Sorry, go ahead, Adam.
You talk about players in their early 20s, between 20 and 32.
Late 20s, early 30s. Yeah.
Well, for Montreal, look at Max Domi. Perfect example of somebody who's, what is he, 29 years old now, something like that.
He's also a Carolina Hurricane now too.
But
Yeah.
I don't hate that, honestly.
Stay tuned. I got a point here. Max Domi is probably the most I would say the most, or I would say he's probably that guy, right? That's in his prime. He's doing great for Carolina. Like, they're killing it. I think they're third in the Eastern Conference, are they not? Something like that. Like, he's doing something right. They're like that. They've got amazing goaltender. They've got a coach who I would argue is probably one of the best players to ever play the game, and Rod Brendamore.
Rod the Bod. I mean, whenever you have a coach that can beat half your players in fitness testing, like you earn the respect of the room right away.
Right away,
from that.
exactly, 100%.
I don't hate not having Domi on the team anymore, though. Honestly, I didn't think he was. I think he's, he's a good player, but I don't think he's built for that playoff hockey. So that's just my opinion. I didn't. Matt, what do you think on that one?
Oh yeah, I don't know. The only reason why I maybe want him back is because the Habs are lacking playmakers, and Drouin's future is up in the air, and Max is a primary playmaker. So like I could see that, but yeah, there was definitely something going. His defensive
soft on the puck, and he just wasn't defensively sound. I didn't find, but that's just me.
No, I agree. He's turnover city, and he's one of the worst defensive players in the league. For sure. Yeah.
Let's switch gears and let's talk about some of the greatest players that the Habs have had, buddy. What in your mind? I know it's tough to just pick one, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but
you're allowed to make a Mount Rushmore of Canadian players. You're allowed to have up to 4.
We want to hear who you think is the greatest Hab of all time.
Oh Jesus.
I know it's tough. I'll let you give me 2 if you want.
Oh my God. Easy answer is Jean Beliveau, but at the same time, Henri Richard has won the most championships out of any single, any of the 4 major North American sports. He's got 11 rings, all as a player, which is, I think, he might have some of it as an executive too, but it's absolutely insane the amount of championships Henri has.
Would have been cool to been around for those days, hey?
Yeah, could you imagine?
Oh,
so yeah,
man.
I think
you too, and I guess half of Denny, because he likes to play both sides of the coin when it comes to the Bruins Habs debate. You guys were meant to be in the 70s.
He's a little sour about that, eh?
60s and 70s.
Need a hug, bud? Like, what's going on?
I'm just sad that the Bruins got their cheeks clapped by the Leafs last night. That's all.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'll go Henri Richard, just so I don't give the obvious answer of Jean Beliveau.
Part 2 of that question.
I like that.
Who is the one that has influenced you the most while you've been a fan of the Habs? I guess I'll put that out there as well. The one, like, who do you think is the most influential player since you've started watching or really being a huge Habs fan?
That's a good question. There's some good options. I think I'll always be thankful that we got to have Shea Weber on the roster for the tail, for the second half of his career, because he was my favorite defenseman even prior to that. I love them.
How can you not love a stud D man
yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And everyone loves the offensive flashiness. I really like defensive hockey. So to see him shutting guys down, Nick Lidstrom's my favorite defenseman of all time. And of course, he puts up the points, but he would just be, you're trying to
Tough
dump
to
the
play
puck in,
against.
get a quick change, boom, knocks it down, and the puck's coming up the other ice. You can't change. So yeah, Shea Weber's a good one, but man, I might have to go the obvious one here with Carey Price, just because not only his impact on the ice, his willingness to battle through the stress of being the Montreal Canadiens goaltender, the weight of that, and he had numerous options to leave, and he, signed on the dotted line multiple times. I mean, makes it easy when you get offered $10.5 million, but he still chose to stay. And of course, there's the on-ice impact, but I really respect him as a father as well, and especially with what he did this year, coming out with the issues that he had, facing them head on, and for the betterment of himself and his family. So I think I'd have to go with Carey Price.
Great answer, man.
Great answer.
You can't really hate on either one of those picks. I think you nailed it, and the explanations there as well. So that's awesome, man. We're running out of time, boys, but I do have one last question for Matt. Matt, how do you rate the direction of the team since Martin St. Louis taken over? How do you find that's going to be for the team going forward?
I think it's been incredibly refreshing, I think, to say the least. I really liked what Marc Bergevin was building. I like Dom Ducharme. I still think he's a good coach that'll eventually get another chance.
He'll get another job somewhere, and he'll make the most of it. Like he's had success at all the levels he's been at, and I mean, just talk about like a tough hand to be dealt at the beginning of the season, losing your captain, losing your best player and goaltender.
Yeah, and losing essentially your number one center, or at least your rock down the middle, and Phil Deneau. Well,
losing two centers from any lineup, like losing Kotkaniemi and Deneau, like whenever you take out two centers out of any team's lineup, like that's going to throw anything. Like, I mean, the way the Habs were playing when they fired Ducharme, like you could have strapped skates on Marty St. Louis and he would have been the best player on the ice, even at his age right now.
Yeah, I agree. And it's nice to hear, a rival fan say that too, because Dom's taken a lot of heat in the media. And, he's become the poster boy of this awful season, but I don't think he necessarily deserves it. But again, I think he'll get another chance. And, it was just a wild roller coaster, and he definitely was dealt a bad hand. But I love what is going on right now. I mean, as much as I liked what Marc Bergevin was building, it's refreshing to have kind of a modern look in the front office and behind the bench. And thankfully, because of Marc Bergevin's, stockpiling of young assets the last couple of years, this rebuild shouldn't take too long. And the new management, along with Marty St. Louis behind the bench, have already it's just injected just a new energy. And we went the Brian Burke style build, trying to win the old fashioned way under Marc Bergevin. And it seems now we're going to just, fix it up a little bit and maybe rely on some more high octane, defensemen getting involved in the play type hockey. You know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to that. And another legendary name in the Montreal Canadiens organization with Marty St. Louis. I'm very grateful to have him behind the bench.
Such a smart player, and he knows the game so well. And one thing, I watched the press conference that he put on the day he was hired, and he talked about, the players being creative and having fun again. And you can see that. You can see the refresh that they felt when he took over. And I know that happens with a lot of coaches, but I really truly believe that this, with the new management and the new coach, I think the great things are upon us, and that's all we can hope for, really. So thanks.
You look at Cole Caulfield's numbers, like how they've improved since he came back, since Marty St. Louis took over. And I'm saying this as a Bruins fan, but I think the future looks bright for the Habs. They really I think they really overachieved on their cup run. Like, they were really a 7-8 seed team that went on a miracle run, which is okay. That's the beauty of sports and what we love. But I think they almost needed this season to kind of shuffle the deck, do a big rebuild, because they're going to be strong. Like, I mean, that whole division is going to be it's the AFC
Juggernaut.
West of the NHL. So
For sure.
Exactly.
Awesome.
just-
Well, thanks so much, Matt. Adam, did you have one more thing to ask Matt?
No, I just want to say one thing. There's a kid that just got drafted by the Montreal Canadiens last year, played for Bathurst, named Riley Kidney from here in Enfield, Nova Scotia. 17 points in 20 games in the playoffs last year. 63rd overall pick.
yeah, that's going to be a steal of a pick. I mean, he's going to grow. Like he's going to be a hell of a player.
He's going to be in Laval next year. Next year, he'll be on the Habs roster in 2023 or 2024. Sorry,
I can't wait to see it.
you heard it here first.
More Maritimers, the better.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on tonight, man.
Yeah.
It was great to have a little love for Les Habitants, and really enjoyed you coming on, buddy. We'll definitely love to have you on again. So keep up the good work with and to any of our listeners, give Scotian Canadien a follow, because he's got some great content. Thanks so much for coming on, buddy. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and it's good to chat with you in person or through video or whatever, Chris. And nice to meet you, Brett, as well. And good to chat again, Adam. Cheers, buddy.
Yeah, nice to meet you, man. It was awesome going back and forth, just shooting the shit with hockey. I mean, it's not too often you get four guys with all different kind of perspectives, just kind of talking about the game, and it's quite clear that all four of us love it, and definitely happy to have you on anytime, man.
I got one for you here before we end it off. So if you're
right,
talking to any Leafs fans and they don't think that Austin Matthews going to Arizona is going to happen, so it may be a 5,000 seat arena, but think of this king that he's going to be on that campus.
So
Just
true.
saying.
Leafs fans, how
Make
you
sure
feel
you
about
rub that in their face.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. And that will do it for episode 7 of BHD Sports Podcast. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.